a 27-year-old software flaw survived human review. Then, an AI model found it. In some cases, it also turned bugs like that into working cyber attacks. That is why banks, regulators, and White House officials started paying attention. And this is not just a story about institutions, because the same kinds of vulnerabilities exist in the operating systems and browsers millions of people use every day. 3 things you need to know. 1, what the Mythos model actually did. 2, why the response was so fast. And 3, why the gap between discovery and attack may be collapsing. For decades, cybersecurity depended on a buffer, the time between finding a vulnerability and weaponizing it. That buffer gave defenders time to patch, contain, and warn. Now, that buffer is shrinking fast. Anthropic's previous flagship model, Claude Opus 4.6, could exploit a known Firefox vulnerability 14% of the time. Mythos Preview hit 72%. That is not a small improvement. That's a jump from unreliable assistance to something much closer to an operational capability. Because work that used to take a skilled researcher days or weeks can now happen in a single overnight run. And the targets were not obscure systems either. They were foundational software. In OpenBSD, one of the most security-focused operating systems in the world, Mythos identified a flaw that had been hiding in the code for 27 years. In FFmpeg, the video processing library used across the internet, it found a 16-year-old bug. In the Linux kernel, it chained vulnerabilities to gain root access, basically full control of the machine. And in FreeBSD, it produced an exploit that could give an unauthenticated attacker root access over the network. Some of these flaws survived decades of human review. And AI found them, and in some cases turned them into exploits in hours. That is why the response was so unusual. Within days, senior officials, regulators, and major financial institutions in multiple countries were holding urgent conversations about what happens when exploit development speeds up like this. Because if the time between discovery and attack collapses, the old defensive playbook simply breaks. Patch cycles get shorter, incident response has to move faster, and legacy systems suddenly look a lot more dangerous. There's another detail here that matters. Anthropic did not release Mythos publicly. Instead, it launched Project Glasswing, giving roughly 40 organizations early access, including major tech firms and banks. The logic is simple. Put these capabilities in defenders' hands first so they can prepare before they are more widely available. Anthropic called this a watershed moment for security. OpenAI moved in a similar direction, but with a different distribution model. It launched GPT 5.4 Cyber for defensive cybersecurity work and expanded access through Trusted Access for Cyber, a verified tiered program for defenders. Different rollout, same basic concern. How do you help defenders without making life easier for attackers? And that is where this stops being just a company story. Anthropic's testing found vulnerabilities across virtually every major operating system and every major web browser. So this is not only about systems that corporations run, it's about the systems you use, the device in your hand, the browser you're using right now. If attackers can generate exploits faster and at scale, they do not always need to go through a company to reach you. They can target the software you rely on directly. You may never see the flaw, but you may feel the consequences much, much faster. Now, some people think that the reaction has been a bit overdone. One chief AI scientist dismissed it as drama. And that is a useful check, because hype is everywhere in AI. But even skeptics generally agree on one point. These capabilities are advancing very quickly. So the real issue is not whether automated exploit development is coming, it's who gets there first. Defenders with time to patch and prepare, or attackers with tools that shrink the warning window to almost nothing. For 30 years, the bottleneck in cybersecurity was finding the hole. Now the bottleneck may be fixing it before someone else walks through. That is why this feels different. Not because one model solves cyber, not because every claim will hold up forever, but because the direction is quite clear. More vulnerabilities found faster with less time to respond. For companies, that means a harder defensive race. For individuals, it means the systems you depend upon, your bank, your browser, your devices, your data, may become targets more quickly and more directly. So the real question is not whether models like this are coming, it is who gets them first. And if you had to choose, would you rather labs give vetted defenders access now, or keep those systems locked down as long as possible? Be sure to follow the Cyber Sidebar for more analysis at the intersection of law, technology, and risk.